Lavrov is expected to arrive at the UN in New York today in order to chair a meeting at the Security Council, and some U.S. diplomats and European diplomats are expected to protest. Your reaction on that? And a second question, if possible, on Brazil and Ukraine. In Europe, where President Lula is now, he said that he knows the difference between an invasion and territorial integrity, that he never equated Russia and Ukraine. But now that the war has started, someone needs to talk about peace. And regarding this, he understands that, from his perspective, that sending weapons means putting more power in this war. Your reaction on that, and what was said from the U.S. side during the contacts that were made between U.S. and Brazilian officials in the past days?
Okay, I won't detail diplomatic conversations. For one, on your first question, refer you to U.S.-UN, our mission up at the United Nations, to speak to that. I'm not aware of that particular meeting, and I wouldn't be qualified to speak to that. But on the second question, the one in the middle, look, we all agree, certainly here in the United States, that this war should end right away. And it could end if Mr. Putin would do the right thing and pull his troops out. Unfortunately, what he's willing to do is to persist in this war. He's the one who invaded Ukraine. Let's not forget who the aggressor here. It wasn't Ukraine. It was Mr. Putin and Russia. They invaded in a completely unprovoked way when there still were diplomatic solutions that had to be explored. He refused to do that. And he's been bombing their cities, bombing their factories, bombing their electrical power, bombing their water, killing innocent civilians month after month after month, all the while trying to build up capability to go back on the offense inside Ukraine in this spring. So every indication is that Mr. Putin is the one who wants to persist in the war. So with all due respect, of course we want peace. Of course we want this war to end. But if Russia were to stop fighting, the war would end. If Ukraine stops fighting right now, Ukraine ends. And that's just simply unacceptable to President Biden and this administration, which is why we're going to do everything we can to support Ukraine's ability to defend itself, defend its territorial integrity, its sovereignty against this Russian aggression, so that when the two sides can sit down and try to negotiate a peaceful outcome here, President Zelensky can do it from a position of strength. So I say again, that the United States is extremely committed, absolutely, stridently committed to peace and to seeing an end to this war. But it has to be done in a way that it comports with President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people's will and desire and perspectives. As you've heard President Biden say many times, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. So any peace discussion, and we would certainly welcome any credible discussion of peace, including, by the way, President Zelensky's peace plan, what he calls for a just peace, which we are helping try to see him actualize. But it has to be done in a credible, sustainable way, which means it has to start from the perspective of the Ukrainian people and President Zelensky, who represents them. Okay.
Do you expect any change from this view that comes from Latin America, that this thought that the president has, that it's countries that are sending weapons needs to stop with that? Do you expect a change in that view, though?
I would have to say that these Latin American leaders, like leaders around the world, have got to speak for themselves, and speak for the people that they represent. We would all like to see this war end. It would be great if we didn't have to send another package of security assistance to Ukraine. Unfortunately, we need to. And it's not just the United States. It's nations around the world. I talked earlier about more than 50 nations are providing some sort of support in Ukraine. Some of it's military, some of it's not. But because so much of the world community understands that, as I said before, if Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting right now, Ukraine ends. And that has to be, must be, and certainly continues to be in the United States, in President Biden's view, an unacceptable outcome at this point.